Close your eyes and imagine standing at the base of a mountain so tall, its peak disappears into the clouds. Now imagine something incredible. That mountain is moving. Right now. Rising just a tiny bit higher every single year. Mountains breathe. They grow. They shift beneath our feet. But the truth behind this will surprise you. Tonight, you're going to discover 100 fascinating things about mountains that will change how you see our planet forever. You'll learn how continents crash together like slow-motion waves. You'll find out about rivers that flow through solid rock. And you'll explore volcanic mountains on other worlds that make Everest look small. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Mountains cover about 1/5 of Earth's land surface. That's millions of square miles of peaks, valleys, and slopes. But here's something most people don't realize. Every mountain range tells a story. A story written in stone over millions of years. The Himalayas are still rising. The Andes are still stretching. The Rockies are slowly wearing away. Mountains are not frozen in time. They're living parts of a moving planet. Think about this. 50 million years ago, India was an island. It drifted north across an ancient ocean. Then it crashed into Asia. The collision was so powerful it crumpled the Earth's crust like paper. The Himalayas were born from that crash. And they're still growing today. About 2 inches every year. Mountains form in different ways. Some are pushed up when continents collide. Others are built by volcanoes. Some rise where the Earth's crust stretches and breaks. Each type has its own personality. Its own secrets. Now here's where things get really interesting. Mount Everest grows about 4 millimeters taller every year because tectonic plates keep pushing. The Himalayas are home to 14 peaks over 8,000 meters tall. No other mountain range comes close. Deep under the Himalayas, the Indian tectonic plate is diving beneath the Asian plate. It's creating pressure that builds mountains. Imagine 2 enormous pieces of the Earth's crust meeting. They don't just stop. They push. They fold. They rise. The rock doesn't want to bend, but over thousands of years, it has no choice. Layers that once lay flat get tilted vertical. Minerals deep underground get squeezed so hard they transform into new rocks. Some rocks at the top of Mount Everest contain fossils of ancient sea creatures. The peak was once an ocean floor. The Appalachian Mountains were once as tall as the Himalayas. That was 300 million years ago. Erosion has worn them down. Picture this. The Appalachians formed when all the continents joined into one supercontinent called Pangaea. The collision created mountains that rivaled anything we see today. But wind and rain are powerful sculptors. Given enough time, they can reduce giants to hills. Mountains create their own weather. When moist air hits a mountain, it rises and cools. The moisture falls as rain or snow. The Andes Mountains stretch for 4,300 miles. That makes them the longest mountain range on land. The Andes formed where an ocean plate slides beneath South America. This creates volcanoes and earthquakes. Over 60 of the world's most active volcanoes are in the Andes. Mountains can influence weather patterns thousands of miles away. The Himalayas help create the monsoon rains that feed half of Asia. Think about millions of people depending on mountain snow and rain. When winter snows pile up in high peaks, they create a water reservoir. In spring and summer, the snow melts. Rivers flow down to farmlands and cities. Mountains are like giant water towers for the planet. Mount Everest grows about 4 millimeters taller every year because tectonic plates keep pushing. The Himalayas are home to 14 peaks over 8,000 meters tall. No other mountain range comes close. Deep under the Himalayas, the Indian tectonic plate is diving beneath the Asian plate. It's creating pressure that builds mountains. Imagine 2 enormous pieces of the Earth's crust meeting. They don't just stop. They push. They fold. They rise. The rock doesn't want to bend, but over thousands of years, it has no choice. Layers that once lay flat get tilted vertical. Minerals deep underground get squeezed so hard they transform into new rocks. Some rocks at the top of Mount Everest contain fossils of ancient sea creatures. The peak was once an ocean floor. The Appalachian Mountains were once as tall as the Himalayas. That was 300 million years ago. Erosion has worn them down. Picture this. The Appalachians formed when all the continents joined into one supercontinent called Pangaea. The collision created mountains that rivaled anything we see today. But wind and rain are powerful sculptors. Given enough time, they can reduce giants to hills. Mountains create their own weather. When moist air hits a mountain, it rises and cools. The moisture falls as rain or snow. The Andes Mountains stretch for 4,300 miles. That makes them the longest mountain range on land. The Andes formed where an ocean plate slides beneath South America. This creates volcanoes and earthquakes. Over 60 of the world's most active volcanoes are in the Andes. Mountains can influence weather patterns thousands of miles away. The Himalayas help create the monsoon rains that feed half of Asia. Think about millions of people depending on mountain snow and rain. When winter snows pile up in high peaks, they create a water reservoir. In spring and summer, the snow melts. Rivers flow down to farmlands and cities. Mountains are like giant water towers for the planet. Here's something beautiful. When a glacier flows down a mountain valley, it doesn't just slide. It grinds. The ice carries rocks and boulders like sandpaper. It carves U-shaped valleys with steep walls and flat floors. When the ice melts away thousands of years later, it leaves behind spectacular landscapes. There are hidden rivers flowing through mountains. Water seeps into cracks and carves tunnels through solid rock. Some mountain caves contain rivers that have never seen daylight. They've flowed in darkness for millions of years. The longest mountain tunnel in the world is the Gotthard Base Tunnel in Switzerland. It runs 35 miles through the Alps. Mountains can actually bend light. On certain days, you can see peaks that are beyond the horizon because of atmospheric refraction. The highest wind speed ever recorded on Earth was on Mount Washington in New Hampshire. 231 miles per hour. Picture standing on a peak where the wind moves faster than a race car. The air is so thin you can barely breathe. The temperature is far below freezing. Yet people climb these places. They test themselves against the raw power of nature. This brings us to the most surprising discovery of all. Mountains are older than you think. The oldest mountain ranges on Earth are over 3 billion years old. The Barberton Greenstone Belt in South Africa contains some of Earth's oldest mountains. They were here when the planet was young and life was just beginning. Young mountains have sharp, jagged peaks. Old mountains are smooth and rounded. Time reveals their age. Every mountain will eventually disappear. Erosion never stops. It just works very slowly. Think about this deeply. The mightiest peak on Earth will one day be dust scattered across a plain. Mountains seem eternal. But they're just temporary wrinkles on a planet that's constantly renewing itself. Everything is part of a cycle. Mountains rise. Mountains fall. New ones are born. The Rocky Mountains are relatively young. They started forming about 80 million years ago. Dinosaurs roamed the valleys as the Rockies were rising. Imagine a T-Rex hunting in the shadow of growing peaks. Mountains can trigger earthquakes as they rise. The pressure building beneath them has to release somehow. The deadliest earthquake in history hit Shaanxi, China, in a mountainous region. 830,000 people reportedly died. Mountains store fresh water in glaciers and snowpack. About a quarter of the world's population depends on mountain water. Here's why this matters. As our climate changes, mountain glaciers are melting faster. The water that billions depend on is changing. Rivers that have flowed for thousands of years might run dry. Or they might flood. Mountains are early warning systems for our planet's health. There are mountains on Mars. Olympus Mons is the tallest known mountain in the solar system. It's 72,000 feet high. Olympus Mons is so wide that if you stood on its peak, the slopes would extend beyond the horizon in every direction. Mars has no plate tectonics. Its mountains don't get worn down by weather like ours do. They can grow much larger. Venus has mountains too. Maxwell Montes rises over 36,000 feet. That's taller than Everest. Scientists believe mountains exist on worlds we haven't even visited yet. Exoplanets circling distant stars might have peaks higher than we can imagine. Picture a mountain on an alien world. It rises under a red sky. 2 moons hang overhead. The rocks are made of minerals we've never seen. Life might exist in valleys we'll never walk through. Mountains remind us that Earth is just one small world in an infinite universe. The Matterhorn's famous pyramid shape was carved by 4 glaciers grinding against it from different sides. About 30 climbers die on the Matterhorn each year. The mountain demands respect. K2 is considered more dangerous to climb than Everest. About 1 in 4 people who try to summit K2 don't survive. The death zone on high mountains begins above 26,000 feet. Above that altitude, humans can't survive for long without extra oxygen. Your body starts dying in the death zone. Cells break down faster than they can repair. Every minute counts. But here's something hopeful. Humans have an incredible ability to adapt. People born in high mountain regions like Tibet or the Andes have evolved slightly different bodies. Their blood carries oxygen more efficiently. Their hearts and lungs work differently. In just a few thousand generations, nature has found ways to help humans live where they shouldn't be able to. The city of La Paz in Bolivia sits at 11,975 feet above sea level. It's the highest capital city in the world. People in La Paz live their entire lives in thin air that would leave a sea-level visitor gasping. Mountains contain about half of the world's biodiversity hotspots. These are places with incredibly high numbers of unique species. Snow leopards live higher than almost any other large predator. They hunt at altitudes up to 18,000 feet. Mountain goats have special hooves that work like suction cups. They can climb near vertical cliffs. Some mountain insects have natural antifreeze in their blood. This lets them survive being frozen solid. Imagine being so adapted to cold that ice can't kill you. Your body simply waits for warmth to return. These creatures show us that life finds ways to thrive in the harshest places. Mountains challenge life. And life rises to meet the challenge. So what does all this mean for us today? Mountains teach us about time. Human lives are short. We measure our years in decades. But mountains measure their lives in millions of years. They rise so slowly that 100 human generations might see no change at all. Yet the change is happening. The Swiss Alps lose about 3% of their glacier mass every year now. That's faster than any time in recorded history. Some scientists believe certain mountain glaciers might disappear completely within your lifetime. When glaciers vanish, they leave behind unstable slopes. Mountains become more prone to landslides and rockfalls. Think about stability. Mountains seem solid and unchanging. But they're actually in constant flux. Ice holds loose rock in place. When the ice melts, whole mountainsides can collapse. The landscape we think is permanent is actually fragile. Mountains create rain shadows. Moist air drops its water on one side of a range. The other side becomes desert. The Atacama Desert in Chile is one of the driest places on Earth because the Andes block moisture from reaching it. Some parts of the Atacama haven't seen rain in over 400 years. Yet mountains just miles away are covered in snow. Mountains can harbor ancient ice. Some glaciers contain ice that fell as snow over 100,000 years ago. Scientists drill into this ancient ice to study past climates. Air bubbles trapped in the ice are samples of prehistoric atmosphere. By studying mountain ice, we've learned what the air was like before humans existed. We can see how dramatically we've changed it. Here's a personal truth. Mountains put things in perspective. When you stand before a peak that's been rising for 50 million years, your problems feel smaller. Your life feels like a brief flash. But that flash is beautiful. It's precious. Mountains remind us to appreciate the time we have. Mount Fuji in Japan is considered sacred. Thousands of people climb it each year as a spiritual pilgrimage. Many cultures see mountains as places where earth meets heaven. They're often considered homes of gods or spirits. The ancient Greeks believed their gods lived on Mount Olympus. The mountain's peak was thought to be Zeus's throne. Tibetan Buddhism has sacred mountains where monks have meditated for over 1,000 years. Mountains appear in the stories and myths of virtually every human culture. They represent challenges, wisdom, and transcendence. There's something in human nature that sees a mountain and wants to climb it. Not because it's useful. Not because it's easy. But because it's there. Mountains call to something deep in us. A desire to test ourselves. To see what's on the other side. To stand higher than we've ever stood before. The summit of Mount Everest is about the size of a dining table. After months of climbing, you reach a space barely big enough for a few people. Climbers spend only a few minutes at the summit. The air is too thin to stay longer. Over 300 people have died trying to climb Everest. Many of their bodies are still up there, preserved by the cold. The route up Everest is marked by the bodies of those who didn't make it down. They serve as grim waypoints. This sounds dark, but there's a deeper truth here. Mountains are honest. They don't care about your wealth or status. They don't care about your plans or dreams. They simply exist. They test you fairly. Either you're prepared or you're not. Either you respect them or you pay the price. The tallest mountain that you can actually stand on top of is Mauna Kea in Hawaii. Its summit is just 13,796 feet above sea level. Chimborazo in Ecuador is the farthest point from Earth's center. Because Earth bulges at the equator, Chimborazo's peak is actually farther from the planet's core than Everest's peak. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. Mountains are moving in ways we never expected. New research shows they can shift horizontally as well as vertically. The Himalayas aren't just rising. They're also sliding northward at a rate of about 2 inches per year. This means mountains are traveling. Slowly drifting across the planet's surface like ships on a very slow ocean. Here's the beautiful paradox. Mountains seem like the most stable things on Earth. But they're constantly in motion. They rise and fall. They drift and shift. They're born and they die. Just like everything else. There are underwater mountains we haven't named yet. We've mapped more of Mars than we've mapped our ocean floors. Seamounts can create their own ecosystems. Fish and corals gather around them in the middle of empty ocean. Some seamounts are so tall that their peaks create swirling currents that reach the surface hundreds of feet above. Mountain caves can contain entire ecosystems that have evolved separately from the outside world for millions of years. Scientists discover new species in mountain caves every year. These creatures have adapted to eternal darkness. Some cave fish have no eyes at all. They've lost them because sight serves no purpose in absolute darkness. Mountains can sing. Wind passing through certain rock formations creates sounds ranging from hums to screams. Imagine walking alone on a mountain and hearing a low moan coming from the rocks. Ancient people thought these were spirits. Now we know it's just physics. But maybe the old interpretation wasn't completely wrong. Maybe mountains do have a kind of voice. The tree line marks the altitude where trees can no longer grow. Above it, Only smaller plants survive. The tree line is rising as the climate warms. Trees are slowly creeping up slopes where they couldn't live before. This changes entire ecosystems. Animals that depended on open alpine meadows are losing their habitat. Mountain pikas are small creatures that live near mountain peaks. They're sensitive to heat. As temperatures rise, they have nowhere to go. Some mountains have permanent clouds around their peaks. These clouds form and stay in place, fed by rising air currents. Table Mountain in South Africa has a famous tablecloth cloud that drapes over its flat summit. Mountains can create their own lightning. Upward-moving lightning bolts can shoot from peaks into clouds above. The Ural Mountains in Russia divide Europe from Asia. They're one of the world's oldest ranges, dating back 250 to 300 million years. Unlike young mountains, the Urals are worn down to gentle slopes. They show us what all mountains will eventually become. Mountains contain most of Earth's freshwater resources. Without mountain snowpack, many regions would have no water in summer. Think about your tap water. If you live near mountains, it probably started as snow on a high peak. It melted in spring. It flowed down streams and rivers. It was filtered through rock and soil. It traveled miles to reach you. Every glass of water tells a story of a journey from the heights. Mountains are rising in places you wouldn't expect. Parts of Scotland are rising as Ice Age ice sheets that compressed them thousands of years ago are gone. The land is bouncing back. Very slowly. Rising a few millimeters per year. This is called isostatic rebound. The Earth's crust is flexible enough to spring back over thousands of years. Mountains have helped humans evolve. Walking upright became advantageous in mountainous terrain where seeing over rocks and through trees mattered. Some anthropologists believe mountain valleys isolated early human groups, allowing different cultures and languages to develop. Mountains have shaped human history. They've been barriers to armies, borders between nations, and refuges for people fleeing persecution. The Silk Road crossed some of the world's highest mountain passes. Traders risked their lives to connect east and west. Mount Ararat is traditionally believed to be where Noah's Ark landed. The mountain has been sacred for thousands of years. And here's the final truth. Mountains teach patience. They show us that great things take time. That beauty comes from pressure and struggle. That nothing lasts forever, but while it's here, it can be magnificent. Every mountain began as flat ground. Forces beyond imagination pushed and shaped and carved until something incredible emerged. The same is true for us. We're all shaped by pressure and time. We're all growing and changing, even when we can't feel it. When you look at a mountain, you're seeing time made visible. You're seeing the planet's story written in stone. You're seeing proof that impossible things happen slowly. Let that thought carry you into sleep tonight. You are part of the same planet that built mountains. The same forces of change and growth work within you. The same patience that raises peaks can transform your life. If this opened your eyes to the quiet majesty all around us, then something beautiful has already begun. Tonight, you've journeyed from the highest peaks on Earth to mountains on Mars. You've learned how continents collide and ice carves stone. You've discovered that mountains breathe, move, and change just like every living thing. These 100 facts are just the beginning. Mountains have endless stories to tell. Every peak is unique. Every valley holds secrets. The more you learn, the more wonder you'll find. If these peaceful facts helped calm your mind tonight, consider subscribing for more bedtime science. Your like helps others discover these calming journeys. And your comments keep this community growing. What would you like to explore next? Ocean mysteries? The secrets of forests? The story of how life began? Let me know in the comments. Your curiosity guides where we travel next. For now, let your mind drift. Picture a mountain at twilight. Snow glowing in the last light. Valleys filled with purple shadows. Everything still and peaceful and eternal. Sleep well. Tomorrow, you'll wake up knowing that the mountains are still there. Still rising. Still ancient. Still beautiful. And so are you. Have you ever stood at the top of a mountain? What did it feel like to see the world stretched out below you? Share your story in the comments.